So, good morning everybody, and welcome to this panel session. I'm delighted to be joined by so many people here, and hopefully you take something from this session. Today we're going to talk about energy infrastructure and emissions, and really quantifying the impact of AI on the environment. It's a topic that's on everyone's tongue at the moment, and everyone wants to talk about where AI is and what AI is going to look like in the future. I'm delighted to be joined by our expert panel here. So on my left we have Dame Dawn Childs from Pure Data Center, CEO of Pure Data Center. I have Jerome Total next to me, VP of Strategy for Data4.
Morning.
Adele Trombetta for Cisco, next in line, and then Regis Castagna, MD for Equinix here in France. So we touched just briefly there in terms of what we see in terms of artificial intelligence. It is the topic on everyone's tongue at the moment. It's what everyone's talking about. We're in this world where there's a lot of uncertainty around it. What's it going to look like today? What's it look like in the future? These are the questions that we're going to address through this next 45 minutes. You see some stats on there. Huge amounts of growth that's expected to come from artificial intelligence. 196 billion is what the market's sized at the moment. That's going to grow exponentially over the next 5 years. And critical in this space is, what do we do around the environmental impact? These data centers are power hungry. They require significant amounts of power, significant amounts of cooling. And then how does that AI infrastructure start to feed out to the edge and the distributed IT to support our daily needs and how we deploy AI? These are the questions we'll touch on today, and if it's okay with everyone, we'll jump straight into some of those questions now. So maybe if I start with yourself, Dame Dawn, what do you see as the current trends around AI, and what are you seeing as a CEO of Pure Data Center?
So I'm seeing that there is a significant increase in desire and demand, and to be candid, I could build more data centers all day long. If I could go and find powered land, I could be building in every single jurisdiction around the globe to meet that AI demand from my customers, and my customers are the hyperscalers. Generally, I don't do sort of lower level colo. So I think it's a significant impact. I think the demand definitely will outstrip supply. I think there's a bit of a race on at the moment to get hold of that supply of the data centers in critical locations, but also there's the ability to move away from the standardized locations that we have in the sort of the more routine European markets and expansions in the Gulf area that we're seeing, because machine learning can happen anywhere. So there is now demands for larger sort of 100 megawatt plus campuses in more remote locations. So that could be helpful, but it also could provide an issue because there isn't enough power. So yeah, I'm seeing demand outstripping supply, outstripping my capability, outstripping the supply chain's capability, and definitely outstripping the skills and talent pipeline. So nice problem to have, but definitely a problem.
Is the maybe as a follow-up there, is the race for data center a race for power or a race for the data center itself at the moment? What's your take on that?
So you can't have one without the other. So you could find a location that might suit a data center, but if you can't get the power, then it's pointless. So I think you need to have both hand in hand. I also think that there's a challenge with the profile and the name of data centers because of the lack of understanding generally with not only local governments but also with the community in general and people. They don't really understand what a data center is. So I think there's an awful lot to be done to improve our image to enable us to meet even a part of this demand that I see.
And it's probably a good place to move on to yourself there, Jerome, as VP of Strategy. So you see similar trends to what Dame Dawn was talking about there, and what we're doing about it in terms of changing that perception of data center as well in the industry?
Yeah, hi everybody. So the first challenge is power, obviously, but it's also acceptability, especially in Europe. The name of data center is not completely well populated in Europe, so this is something that we need to change, and it's a day-to-day activity to work on this topic. And as you just mentioned, the AI is just a new wave. We had the cloud, now it's the AI wave. When we see the figures, 20% of data center, 25, depending on the analyst, of data center dedicated to AI in Europe. To be honest, it's hard to believe today, because all the data center for AI are not in Europe at the moment. So it's difficult to believe that we will be able to build such amount of data center with the acceptability, with the power issue, and all the different regulations that are appearing, the Energy Efficiency Directive, etc. So it's a challenge. We are all ready to win the challenge, but it will be tough.
And maybe a follow-up question to that as well for yourself. You mentioned what we see in the future, the 20%, 25% of what AI will be deployed in data center. How much do you see today?
Zero.
Okay.
in our data center, it's just the beginning. So in the US for sure, but in Europe, this is the beginning, and we are building data centers that will be hybrid, both for cloud and AI. But data center dedicated to AI, to be honest, at the moment in Europe, I would be very surprised to have one single data center for AI in Europe.
Yes.
Today. But it will change, and we have a lot of requests from customers, either corporate, either hyperscalers. They want to go to the AI, so we need to build a data center like that, but for the moment, it's just the beginning.
If I may add one comment to your question, how much of the data center are for the AI? The answer is absolutely zero, but it's even interesting to understand why, because I'm in Cisco, and I'm leading all the customer experience for Cisco. That is, everything is services and software for Cisco, and we are definitely interacting a lot with our customers to understand how we can help them navigating this AI wave. And we've done a survey across 8,000 customers across 30 markets in the world. And the result is quite interesting, because we found out that 96% of these customers are telling us, yes, definitely AI is the most important topic. We are discussing about AI every day. We know that in the next months we will invest way more on AI. However, only 14% of these customers, they are telling us, yes, we are ready to use AI, we are equipped to use AI, we have clear understanding of what we want to do with the AI. So I'm not surprised that we are not there yet, because even our customers, they don't know how to use AI. Mm-hmm. And that's where we have an important role to play before then we get into the technology and infrastructure and the data center piece.
So Adele, maybe just to follow up again on that, when you've done those surveys with your customers, do they see the benefits of AI and how they're going to deploy and use it? Do you feel there's a tangible output that they expect?
The honest answer is a mix of maturity. I mean, it's quite interesting, because when you see and you ask about what is the main use case that you expect from AI, the answer is automation. Mm-hmm. But AI is way more than automation, especially when you talk about the generative AI. There's way more, but people still think of, or customers still think about the traditional usage of AI. So I think that there is way to go from in terms of maturity, but this is exactly where we as a technology leaders, we have a play to role. And for me, what is really important, we cannot play this battle alone. I mean, we need to work with the government, with the NGOs, we need to work together, especially when we talk about AI and sustainability is the topic of our panels. This is something that none of us, even the big corporation like Cisco or all the others that are here in this panel, or Schneider, cannot play alone. And that's the reason why Schneider and Cisco, we have announced in December a collaboration, because we know that we need to help first our customer to understand the power of AI, because it's just the beginning, and we want to help them converging IT and OT. That's what we are doing together, and the benefit is huge. It's just the beginning.
And I think the conversation is very much at cloud level at the moment.
Oh, yes.
And at some point down the line, it's going to come to the edge. It's going to come in distributed.
It's already
IT.
getting there.
Yeah.
It's already getting there. In fact, we have already developed for the critical application, the business critical services. We are doing AI at the edge. For example, for cameras for one of our big customers. They want to have everything in the edge because time is of an essence, and so they really need to elaborate everything at the edge. However, it's a matter of balance between the pro and cons. There are still a lot of gaps in terms of technology, but even skills that we are experiencing. So it's a matter. We are getting there. It's already ongoing. It's already happening, but it's still a matter of balance between the two approaches.
Fully agree. Regis, so as MD of Equinix here in France, how are you seeing the change in demand on your business around design for data centers and the infrastructure needed to support AI?
If I may, before talking about the design, I'd like just to make a pause on two things that we've talked about. Jérôme was talking about the acceptability of data center. At Equinix, that's what we call the external positivities. And I was yesterday with the Minister of Digital, Marina Ferrari, and clearly the data center by itself is the foundation of AI. And when you look at the report that has been provided to Mr. Macron a week and a half ago, it clearly states in the 25 recommendation that the data center, and there's 2 recommendations specifically on the data center, have to be there, have to be powerful, have to be on the world territory, otherwise there will not be any AI. So there's a very close link between the two. And Adele, you were talking about ecosystem.
Oh, yes.
I'm totally with you. AI is about ecosystems. And that's the reason why, by the way, so I will just take my French flag. France is pretty well positioned for once into the AI battle because we've got a very talented pool of startups in France. We've got a very supporting government as well, and we can imagine that we have a real role to play. But it's really how those ecosystems get together, and that's the beginning. Agree with you as well. We are not yet at a maturity phase, and the ecosystem is not just about AI. It's AI, it's cloud, it's telecoms. I mean, it's all of those things that will allow AI to get to maturity. So it's quite complex.
And I would add sustainability, because if you think about each of them, they have an impact.
Yeah.
They can help or can be a can have a negative impact as well. So
Definitely.
It's super important.
And I'm coming to your question because it's really about sustainability. And just before I finish on ecosystem, Equinix is known as being the house of cloud. And our ambition is to become the house of AI as well. We've got 41% of the cloud service providers globally over our 260 data centers. We want to be the house of AI as well. So bear with us, it's coming, but definitely we will have a key role to play. And when it comes to sustainability, that's a key topic. AI cannot be unsustainable. It's just a given. And I will take an example of what we have achieved recently in France. We have signed 7 PPAs. I don't know if you're familiar with the PPAs. That's some contract that allow the creation of, in that case, wind farm. And those 7 wind farms will produce the equivalent of 660,000 homes in France. So it's really massive. It's the largest PPA ever signed in France. And that's something I was mentioning as well to the minister yesterday and to all the people I'm talking to. We have a key role to play in terms of exemplarity. How do we engage ourselves faster than the other ones? Because we are heavy consumers, because, well, I should maybe not say that, but we have a little bit of money and the willingness to go through a much better world. We've started that journey in Equinix in 2014. We've said in 2014 we will be 100% renewable energy in 2030. We're at 96% over the planet. We've just signed a very large PPA in Australia, which is the 4% missing. We'll get there. And that's, I think, the exemplarity we need to bring to the market. And by the way, a little bit of advertising, we've done that together with the good advice from Schneider Electric.
It's
to
a
sign those
fantastic
PPAs.
example of partnership.
good-
To your
good
point before,
partnership.
fantastic example.
Correct. So yes, I mean, definitely critical. And maybe another one, which is another initiative we are having in France, the first time ever that we take the fatal heat that is produced in the data center by each and any of you and your companies, and we reuse that heat, we provide that heat for free to, in that case, the Olympic swimming pool and 1,600 habitation. So you know that, again, in terms of what Jérôme was talking about, acceptability, that's the kind of critical thing that we can do and that we must do.
I'm going to go a little bit off script here,
Yeah.
because I
That's okay,
want to
that's
follow up on that question, because it's a really great point, the acceptability aspect of the data center industry. Do we talk about the fantastic things that we do around giving back to community, around reuse of heat, and there's numerous examples that I can list out that I've seen across Europe that are fantastic to show. How do we turn that into something that's a little bit more tangible for someone said explain it to your gran, to your grandparents.
If I can just start on that one, I think very tangible. Equinix France is, since the end of last year, what we call une entreprise à mission, a purposeful company. So we have written in our status what is our raison d'être and how do we decline that in 3 objectives, and one of those 3 objectives is sustainable digital. The second one is the digital inclusion. So it's really how do we give back to our community. We are mécène. How would you say mécène? We're mécène. Well, we are sponsoring Emmaüs Connect, and in Bordeaux Mécènes Solidaires. Fantastic people. And the third thing is about talents. It's about DIB and how do the people at Equinix, but not only, feel well in the company they're working for.
Yeah.
And we are as well a best workplace in France. So you know that's very tangible. It's things that everybody can see that are public, and that's our commitment to give back to our people, but also to our community. Now we'll stop with that. We've got on one of our data center a urban farm. We're producing 2 tons of tomatoes, and we are giving those tomatoes to the people in need around the data center. Yeah. That's the kind of positive thing we can do and we must do.
Absolutely. Dame Dawn, you were going to...
Yeah, and I think it's so true, but renewable energy is a must, but we need to solve for the carbon footprint of the data centers themselves.
Yeah.
Yes, district heating and all of those good aspects, fantastic, but we need to do more as an industry, celebrate it more, get out in the media more, and also, I love the tomatoes and the local community piece. Solving for local issues and challenges is super important, because planning and consenting is becoming far harder. So in London, for example, in our data centre continuing build there, we're going to have the largest green wall in Europe, which takes the equivalent of 30,000 cars off the road. And the reason that we're doing that there is because in the location, it's the only place in Europe that there's somebody has had on their death certificate pollution as a cause of death. So pollution was a real critical issue for the local community there. So I think really showcasing and celebrating some of these pieces, and to your point around describing a data center for your gran, it's very important that we as an industry move forward and explain to the general public that they use us every single day on a moment-by-moment basis. You know, we cannot exist today without data centers, so making them a pariah that is somehow part of the sustainability issue and problem,
Yes.
rather than part of the solution, is really difficult. Something we're doing in Pure is trying to move forward at pace with that, to create insets rather than offsets for the carbon footprint that we will have, because it's going to take decades before you get to carbon negative data centers where you've got all the construction materials that don't have a carbon impact. So creating insets rather than just paying for offsets is something that we're really passionate about. And I think as an industry, we're all doing pieces of this. We ought to put it together, celebrate it more, describe data centers for the general public, make them understand and know why they need us, and then help us or help them to see that we're part of a good future and a sustainable future rather than the problem.
Yeah, fully agree. Any follow-up from Jérôme, Adele?
You go first.
Yeah, thank you. Fully agree with both of you. It's either it's both national, because we need to be very well represented, and it's very good that the AI report that has been provided by to Macron 2 weeks ago is including the development of data center. We were waiting this since a long time, so it's very good. Now we hope that it will be declined, fully declined on the field. But it's also very local. So the municipalities, the metropole, etc., need to see added value. The citizens need to see added value to have an industry. We cannot be fully isolated, and for security reasons, we cannot make open doors, etc. It's quite complex. But the citizen needs to see some added value. So it can be on participating to the municipality event. It can be also on the school. So it's very important, and we are all organizing school events to promote the digitalization, what is a data center, but also to inform and to warn the young people about the environmental impact of a data center, because there is one. It's important, and it's good because when they go back at home, they will train their parents who doesn't know exactly how is working a data center, and they all know that from 7 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock in the evening, they are all using a data center on their mobile. So it's very important to train them on the network part, on the data center part, and on the environmental part.
I agree.
And yes, definitely, I think that the purpose, the element of purpose that you are bringing in the conversation is crucial. Cisco is a purpose-driven company, and for us, create an inclusive future for all is really what we do, and this is what really differentiates, I think, our culture. I tell you in honesty, my experience as well, I'm coming from other big corporations as well, but what really makes the difference is the culture in a company, and how. And when we say that, is not, I'm thinking not only to the internal, to the employees, but even what we do for the others, to your point. And just to mention a couple of initiatives that are very much related to what we are talking about. First, when it comes to the sustainability, Cisco, and we have here the Chief Sustainability Officer from Cisco, we have decided to invest 100 million in the next years in order to help our other companies, startup or the government or NGA, in order to go ahead and create more of this and work together to the point of the ecosystem for the sustainability, as well as we have initiatives that we call Country Digitization Acceleration, we call CDA, where we invest in the different countries in order to help the local population, the local companies, the local government, in order to accelerate their digitization. And in doing that, we have in mind, first of all, the impact on the planet, the sustainability, and even how we can allow the youth, the young generation, to be closer, to be open to the technology. We have a huge focus also on the diversity, because unfortunately it's still a matter of fact, especially when it comes to the technology sector, it is male dominated for several reasons, for historical reasons, but we even know it is just a matter of giving the opportunity to the people to know what they can do, especially the women, and then they will be way more closer. So we are really trying to do something for the different communities and to help them to move to the next level of success and growth.
It's a critical part of it. You know, when we talk about sustainability, we often focus too much on the E, but we've got to remember the E, S, and the G. The social impact of what we do as an industry and as in each of our businesses, and the social impact it has on our families, our friends, and everyone in community. It's significant, and we need to that promotion of how we impact the social environment, not just with the infrastructure that we build, but the output of what comes from that infrastructure is critical. And key points that you've all made there. Thank you for going slightly off piste and having that conversation.
About that.
But I think that there's another so what to that, though, which is part of the whole ecosystem, which is unless we really celebrate and become more open about what we're doing, everything that we're giving back, and the criticality of the infrastructure that we're building, and really lean into the sustainability aspects of it, then regulators will come and regulate us in a very negative way, which will prevent us from building out the digital infrastructure that's actually required, desired, and needed. So I think being conscious of that ecosystem, understanding better what we do and how we're doing it in a good and sustainable way, and working very closely with regulators and governments and local communities is essential, because as we've seen in some jurisdictions like Dublin, for example, Singapore, there's moratoriums on building data centres, on connecting them to power grids. So those societies are now going to be stymied from an economic perspective of benefiting from the future digital infrastructure, and all of the hyperscalers and us will be looking to build elsewhere.
Yes.
So understanding what we're doing, talking about it, celebrating it, attracting new talent, but also working with governments and regulators, it's essential. Otherwise, back to my starting point, we will fail to deliver.
And it's a critical aspect, because we can't get away from the fact that there's a lot of power that's needed to be able to support this digital infrastructure. It's the truth. There's no point in trying to hide away from that. But what we do as an industry, and what we've already done as an industry around the improvements around efficiency, how we build, design and deploy data centres, operate them day to day, a lot of this gets lost. I think if you look at other segments and other industries, it's far more prominent. And if the improvements that have been made within our industry was talked about in the same way, it had been celebrated in terms of some of those significant PUE successes that we've shown over the last 10, 15 years.
And maybe to add to your point, I think nowadays it can't get lost anymore. Well, first of all, you see all around, everything is green. Well, I guess you've chosen that color not by chance. You've mentioned the CSRD.
Yeah.
That will be a key metric that will oblige any single company. So for the time being in France, it's just the listed one. But in the very near future, in 2 years' time, any single company will have the obligation to measure the impact, and not only the environmental impact, but the CSR impact of their activity. So, and everybody knows what you measure is something you can control and act against, which was not the case before. So legislation is going in the right direction. And the other thing is that we have a massive power in our hands. Equinix is, for example, spending 3.6 billion per year just in data centers. And when you look at our scope 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 is only 20%, 80% is the scope 3. So we've built a scenario, and we've committed to that scenario, so that in 2030, 66% of our scope 3 providers will have the same SBTi than we have. And that's valid as well for Schneider, of course, which clearly means that because we are obliging the industry to be as sustainable as we want to be, at the end of the day, we have a real role to embark everybody into that move. So still a lot of challenges, definitely, but very hopeful that we're moving in the right direction.
Please.
Yes, we are going completely out of any.
I like it. This is a natural conversation.
But we are very passionate about that, because you really touched an important point of we can control only what we can measure, and we can improve only what we can measure. That's an interesting statement, because of course it's absolutely true, but it's even true that this is exactly what the problem is. With that, I mean, talking with customers and partners or organizations, the number one support that they need is to measure where they are in terms of sustainability. They know that they want to do something, they know they have to do something, they are not able to say where they are. So the first thing that we are doing to help our customers and partners is to measure their energy impact, their energy consumption, and then only when we do that, we can then build a roadmap to improve and to be more effective. But at the same time, the interesting part is the standardization of the data is still missed at the same time. So one of the things that we are doing in Cisco with our sustainability officer under her leadership is to define the data foundation first. Because only if we do that, we will have, first we can really report and measure what we are doing as Cisco, what is our impact on the planet, and we can improve. And at the same time, we can help the others doing that. So that's number one priority definitely to work on.
You need the benchmarking and the positioning to be able to drive improvement.
Yes.
So maybe if I move on to a slightly different topic here around power, and we've touched on it a little bit already. That what's your take in terms of the demand that we potentially see around AI and the impact that's going to have on the grid, and how we as an industry help to address some of those power constraint challenges that we potentially see here in Europe? Maybe if I start with yourself, Jerome.
Yeah. In fact, in the past, we didn't have any issue of power. The quality was good, especially in Europe, and we have enough power, so it was a no-brainer question. Now it's more and more difficult. We know it. With the AI plus the cloud needs, it's quite complex. So we will, and this is what we are doing inside Data4, we try to be much more innovative compared to the past. In the past, we were using the grid, and if there is a power outage, we are using the genset. It's very basic. It's a 0 or 1. Now, within the next 5 years, we need to be much more innovative. And I see innovation everywhere. I see here. It's key because we will not be a binary 0 or 1, but we will be maybe 30% of production on site for using a specific solution, another 20% on another solution, and we will complement only with the grid. At the moment, we are using 100% of the grid, and if there is an issue, we are just using the genset. And for sure, we try to find solutions which are sustainable with a lower impact. So this is the future. I don't know when it will be available, because it depends also on the supply chain and when you or the competitor will be able to offer this kind of solution. But I really think that in the future, we'll be much more innovative compared to the past.
Much more interactive with the grid.
Yeah.
And then Dawn?
Yeah, so that there will be an emergence of microgrids. There has to be. So whether that's grid-scale batteries, I'd like to see a world where small modular nuclear could come into play, so small modular reactors. However, the consenting around those is too long a purview, so it's 4 or 5 years to get those installed. And more, there will be private wires. So the microgrids, private wires, whether it's grid-scale batteries, there'll be peak lopping as well. So there are already some data centres that do participate in that to feed back to the grid. But it's quite difficult, because when the grid goes down, it's when our gensets kick in, and so it's sort of slightly perversely at the wrong time at the moment to be helpful to the grid. But I think there will be ways forward where we sort of oversize maybe the microgrid and then feed back into the grid. So we're then seen again by the communities as something that brings more than just the data centre and the building and the jobs, etc., but also can help to solve some of the power challenges in the local region. So we're going to have to think longer and harder, and it's easier if you're building an AI-specific data centre somewhere out in the midst of nowhere where there's maybe hydropower available, and then and you can maybe put a solar farm next door because there's lots of space. But within the metros, within city centres, that's going to be the challenge, finding sort of microgrid scale solutions that can fit into small spaces. So that's where true innovation, I think, needs to happen.
Absolutely.
And there is a new think tank that has been created, Net Zero Innovation Hub. Schneider is part of this program, Data4 plus other companies, and one of the topics, there are 2 main streams. One of the streams is to be much more innovative on the power produced on site.
And Regis, I guess there's an argument to say that with the investment you've made in renewable energies and wind farms and the PPAs, you almost have that microgrid within the data center infrastructure at the moment. What's your take on power supply and how you're addressing it in Equinix?
I would say it's not only about supply. Supply is definitely a constraint that we have and that we did not have in the past, but it's also about how do we use the power. I see, for example, we've got Guillaume here, the head of design. It's really how are we sustainable by design? And there's a lot of things to do. I mean, our industry, we were used to add so much resiliency to make sure that we were always 100% up and running. It was a little bit too much. And there's a lot to do to have a design that is much more respectful of the planet. So that's one. And 2 is how do you use that energy? And and again, it's not only us. You know, in the PUE, I mean, the way we measure a large part is the customer consumption. So how do we work with customers so that they don't use as much power, or they are much more dense into what they're using, much more mature into what they're using? So there's a lot of education to do there, but I mean, we have so many customers that we have a key role to play. And also, how do we help them with, for example, liquid cooling to be, again, much more sustainable? You know, that when you have racks that are above 40 kVA, you need to be liquid cooling. We have a proof of concept in one of our data center. We've put some Dell equipment that's going to be announced in a week's time, so I'm doing a pre-announcement. We've got 2 other major providers that will be doing the same to educate the market and show how liquid cooling can be one of the solutions to be much more respectful when you use the energy. So I think it's not only the production, which is definitely a key issue, but where France has some, I would say, some very strong assets. You know that France is the country in Europe where the production of electricity has the lowest carbon impact, together with Sweden. But it's 10 times less than the UK, the Germany, 8 times less than the UK. I mean, we have a fantastic competitive advantage. We don't use it. So that's the kind of thing for which we have a good level of maturity. And if we can reinforce that, for example, with the PPAs, and if we can have a much more mature way of using the energy, I would say that we're going in the right direction.
I think this is a key aspect in terms of the partnership conversation before, because technology and supply of technology, innovation around technology, it's a key part to it to keep driving that efficiency in design, optimization in operation.
Yeah.
Adele?
It's interesting, yes, because I was about to jump in because so what you said is exactly what even is our strategy, especially when it comes to data center and how we can optimize the impact or reduce the impact of the data center to get to the dream of the decarbonized data center. That is still a dream. We are not there, but definitely we are doing way better. So first, I think it would be important for us even to understand why we're talking so much about the data center, the impact of the data center into the energy and sustainability, energy consumption sustainability. It's a matter of fact, the ICT sector, it costs 3%, it impacts for the 3% of the overall energy consumption. So it's a huge impact. And this number is going to be up probably to 5%. That's the expectation. Why? Because of AI. It's a matter of fact. So AI will bring a lot of benefit to sustainability, but we need to be selective in the way we use AI and in the infrastructure that support AI. When we look into the ICT sector, 70% of the consumption is in the data centers. That's the reason why we keep talking about data center. This is the reason why it's so important for us to talk about data center. From a Cisco standpoint, we are doing exactly what you said. So we have 3 intervention areas. The first is the supply of the power of the electricity, and we are looking into the renewable energy, and we have already reached 72% of the electricity is powered by renewable energy, and we have a goal to get to 100% at the end of the year. The second part is how efficiently we use that. And this is something that goes to the chip, to the server, and that's the reason why we have built our Silicon One chip that was designed to support artificial intelligence as a 35% higher bandwidth, but 96% lower energy consumption. And the last, but definitely not the least, is how we work, how we collaborate with partners and with customers in order to design a more sustainable solution that should never compromise the business performance. So this is an important message. We can get both. We can continue to improve our business performance and at the same time reduce the impact on the planet. That's what we really should do all together in the industry.
I absolutely love the passion from this panel. It's been great listening to you talk through this and so passionate about it as well. I'm keen that I'd like to open up to the floor and see if anyone has any questions for us. More than happy to take some in the last 5 minutes. Do you have a microphone? Thank you.
Hi, Mark.
Hello.
Good job at getting a panel of really every data center operator. It's pretty cool. So can I just touch on something that Regis noted? Because you said that it's the customer behavior that it's harder to change in the data center. One of the things that you didn't mention was the challenge of how many servers sit idle a lot of the time. And I'm curious if that's a conversation you've had with clients or you've tried to have with clients. What is the challenge there? Is there enough monitoring that happens? And kind of what do you think? How do you think it can be solved?
Yeah. So yes, it's a challenge. And we were talking about legislation. If you take the Netherlands, for example, they've put in the law that data center operators have to make sure that the servers that are idle are shut down, which is not possible because we don't control the servers. By definition, that's the customer servers. So we've helped them to understand really what is our job, and now we're back to something that makes more sense, which is education. And education, I mean, it's not only with our customers, it's with any end users. Jérôme was talking about how do we intervene in schools, for example. In the past 2 weeks, I've been in Mines Telecom, I've done, how they call it, Epitech, and Talent for the Planet. And when I look at the way they're using just their iPhones, and that they're changing every year, I mean, in Equinix, you change every 4 years, full stop. That's 70% of the carbon impact of the IT industry is about those things. So how do we change that? I would say first, because that's 70% of the carbon impact. And in parallel, do what we've talked about, do all the good things that we need to be doing. But to your point, that's very difficult because in the contract we have with the customer, they don't have any obligation. The good news is that all our customers will be obliged, because of the CSRD, to understand that we are on their scope 3, but if they want our scope 3 to be positive and more positive, they need to behave in a way that will help us and them to be more respectful. So it's a beginning, it's a long journey, because again, it's about education, it's about change, and not all the companies have understood how critical it is. But for example, in France, we host 83% of the CAC 40. I mean, trust me, none of them are coming to us with, we don't care about the planet. They are all coming to us with, in their RFPs, notation from 10 to 70% about sustainability. That's a massive shift. So, work in progress, a lot to do, but yeah, progressing.
Can you indulge me in one more question,
Yep,
please?
I think we can squeeze one in,
All right.
a quick one.
It will be very quick. So can I just ask from the new projects that Dame Dawn has and that Jérôme has and that Regis has, how many of the new data centers have a microgrid attached to them? So the ones that you're about to break ground on rather than the ones that exist already?
So I have one that is power independent, that is already live, and other stages going live. The others, not yet. So we have some in planning, but none that are about to break ground.
And for Data4, we have 2 projects in progress, but there is no connection yet.
Planning as well. We've chosen to go to the PPAs because somehow we are putting some green energy to the grid. And at the end of the day, I mean, we don't track the electron, but at the end of the day, that has a positive impact. And well, you know the data center industry, we need to be up and running 100% of the time. So we have some clear constraints and contracts with our customers, and we can be innovative, but we need to be mindful of that necessity to provide a service 100% of the time. So, yeah, work in progress again.
So I'm afraid we've run out of time now, and I hope today's session has been useful for you all. You found it engaging. I certainly know we could have talked for a huge amount longer. I had probably 10 more questions that I could have got run through with you. So thank you so much for your engagement, for your feedback, and for your voice today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.